Okay, guys, today we're going to talk about verb conjugation. And when we talk about verb conjugation, we're talking about first person, second person, and third person. Okay? In this lesson, you're going to learn how English verbs, okay, which is the action word, change depending on who is doing the action. This is called verb conjugation. In English, we use different persons to talk about ourselves, the person we are speaking to, and other people or things. By the end of this lesson, you're going to understand the difference between first person, second person, and third person, and you're going to know how to use verbs correctly with each one. When people are learning English as a second language, these are usually the final areas that they focus on, okay? This takes a lot of practice, a lot of speaking, and a lot of reading to really perfect this. Native English speakers have a lifetime to perfect this, but we're going to go over some general rules. So if you can follow along, we'll start with what person means in grammar, okay? When we talk about a person, we're really talking about the subject of the sentence, okay? Who is doing the action, okay? The subject tells us who or what we are talking about. And of course, there's three main persons or whos in English. Now, when we talk about first person, we're using words like I or we. I am learning English today. We are learning English today. Okay? When I'm talking about second person, this is really straightforward because it means I'm talking to you. You are watching the video. You are learning English. Okay? Now, when we get to third person, this means I'm talking about someone or something else. So examples of this are he is learning English, or she is going to the beach, or they are going on vacation. Or I could use someone's name directly and say, John is learning English, or the dog is walking down the street, okay? So let's start with talking more about first person. First person is used when I talk about myself or when I talk about a group that includes me. I is only used for one person, myself. We is used for more than one person. For example, I work. I study English. I speak English. When I'm talking about more than one person, we work. We study. We speak English, okay? Notice how the verb, okay, in this case, whether it's work or study or speak, it stays simple. That means it doesn't change after it follows I or we, okay? I study, I work, I sleep, okay? When we go to second person, the second person is used when I'm speaking directly to another person. The subject of that sentence is you, okay? You work. You study. You speak English. And in English, you can mean one person, or it can mean more than one person. So for example, if I'm speaking to one student, I can say you speak English. But if I'm speaking to a whole class, I can also say, you speak English. And even though I'm saying you, I am talking to everybody, okay? The verb stays the same in this scenario as well. You work, you study, you speak. We're not changing the verb, okay? When we get to third person, this is when we talk about a person or an animal or a thing or a group. This is when we use words like he did this or she did that or it looks like this or they are going over here, okay? So if I use something very simple like he works or he studies or he moves or they are learning English or they speak English, this is where you're going to start to see the verbs like work, study, speak. You're going to see them start to change. In the present simple tense, when we use he, she, or it, we usually add s or es to the end of the verb. For example, when I'm using verbs like I work or you work, I would say he works, okay, with an s at the end. So this is where it can get confusing. I work. You work. But when I'm talking about third person, somebody else, I would say he works with an S at the end. I speak. You speak. She speaks with an S at the end. I play. You play. It plays with an S at the end. But here's where it can get a little tricky. With they, the verb does not take an S. They work. They speak. They play. So you have to remember this important rule. With he, she, and it, add s to the end of the verb when you're dealing with present simple tense. Okay, so let's show some examples with the verb to work. Okay, I work, you work, he works with an S, she works with an S, it works with an S, we work, they work. Okay? Notice the change. He works. She works. It works. Only he, she, and it have an S at the end of the verb. Okay? Here's more examples with the word to study. He studies. Okay? So studies, we're adding IES at the end, okay? It studies. We study. They study, okay? You're starting to notice how the spelling is changing. When a verb ends in a consonant plus Y, we usually change the Y to IES. So for example, when we say study, See how that ends in a Y? That becomes studies with an IES. So you wouldn't say he study. You would say he studies. She studies. But when you get to the word they in the third person, you would again go back to study. They study. It can be a little bit confusing and it takes practice, of course, but the more you're speaking, the more that will come naturally to you. I try. He tries. IES at the end. I carry something. She carries. IES at the end. So let's talk about some more examples with the word to go. Okay, I go. You go. She goes. So instead of just go, G-O, you're going to put E-S at the end. He goes. She goes. It goes. And if I'm talking about we go. And then, of course, when we get to they, again in the third person, it just simply goes to go. They go. They go to the store. Notice the difference. You would not say he go to the store. You would say he goes to the store. Okay? But when you're talking about more than one person, in the third person, you would say they go to the store. Okay? Some verbs add ES instead of only S. Okay? Go becomes goes, G-O-E-S. Do becomes does. That can be a hard one. I see that one a lot. He do that is incorrect. You would say he does that. Okay? She does that. D-O-E-S. Watch. If I'm watching something, watch becomes watches. Okay? She watches the movie. He watches the birds. Okay? Fix becomes fixes. Okay? He fixes this. She fixes that. I fix this. You fix that. But they fix that. See how they in the third person, again, is bringing it back to its simplest form. Okay? We can say he goes to school. She does her homework. He watches TV. She fixes the problem. Okay? So let's look at the verb to be. This is always an important one. This verb is irregular. And it means it doesn't follow the normal pattern. When we say I am, you are, okay? He is, she is, we are, they are. Okay, so let me give you some examples. I am a teacher. You are a student. He is a teacher. She is happy. We are friends. They are friends. The verb to be is one of the most important verbs in English. So it's important as you're learning to try and memorize these forms. Now let's go to the verb to have. Okay? We say, I have. You have. but he has, with an S at the end. She has, or it has. We have, with a V-E at the end, okay? They have, okay? So let's look at some examples. I have a book. You have a pen, okay? He has a car. She has a question. It has a problem. We have time. They have homework, okay? Notice again that he, she, and it are always a little bit different. We do not say he have. We say he has, okay? Okay, so let's do some practice together, okay? I want you to choose the correct verb. I, English. Would you say I speak or I speaks English? Now I'm speaking in the first person, okay? So you would say I speak English, okay? Now try this one. She, English. Would you say she speak English or she speaks English? Okay? The answer, of course, is she speaks with an S at the end. Now let's try they. They, every day. They work every day or they works every day. Again, when we're talking about the word they in third person, we just drop the S and go back to work, okay? They work every day. Okay? He, every day. He work every day or he works every day. Okay? Because it's he, we're going to put that S at the end. Okay? He works every day. So one common mistake, of course, and I see this all the time when English is a second language, people have difficulty with this, and that is forgetting to add the S with he or she and it, okay? These are some examples of incorrect sentences. He work every day. She speak English. It look good, okay? The correct way to say it would be he works every day. She speaks English. It looks good, okay? Another common mistake is adding S after I, you, or we. So it would be incorrect to say I works, or you speaks, or they goes. The correct way to say this would be I work, you speak, we study, they go. Okay? So let's do a final review of everything we've learned today. First person means I or we. Second person means you. Third person means he, she, it, and they. Okay? In the present simple tense, most verbs stay the same with I, you, we, and they. For example, I work, you work, we work, they work, okay? But with he, she, and it, you usually have to add S or ES, okay? For example, he works, She studies. It goes. Okay? This is one of the most important grammar patterns in English. Once you understand this, your sentences will become much clearer and more correct, and you'll start to sound like a native speaker.